Car dealerships across the country are starting to look like ghost towns. Rows of shiny cars sit untouched, their windows gleaming under the sun, but the lots are eerily quiet. Even with sales banners screaming massive discounts and lowest prices of the year, customers simply aren't showing up. Dealers are slashing prices by thousands of dollars, offering record-breaking incentives, and practically begging buyers to come in, yet the traffic on the showroom floor is a fraction of what it used to be. The auto industry went from shortages to surpluses almost overnight, and now it feels like dealerships are drowning in unsold cars. So why are prices falling so drastically? The truth is that many dealerships overstocked, expecting the post-pandemic demand to stay strong. Automakers kept producing at full speed, confident that Americans would keep buying trucks and SUVs like before. But instead of skyrocketing demand, they were met with a wave of hesitation. Rising interest rates, sky-high insurance premiums, and an overall cost of living crunch are keeping buyers on the sidelines. For many families, even a discounted deal feels completely out of reach when monthly payments balloon with financing costs. In fact, some experts say the interest on a loan today adds the equivalent of several $1,000s to the total cost of ownership, wiping out any so-called savings. The result? Lots full of cars nobody wants, or more accurately, nobody can afford. Dealers are watching inventory pile up, and every extra month a car sits unsold, it loses value. That's why you're suddenly seeing markdowns that would have been unthinkable just a couple of years ago. A truck that was once marked up over MSRP is now being sold thousands below sticker, but still, the buyers aren't biting. It's not a matter of demand disappearing completely, people still want new cars, but timing and affordability have become the biggest obstacles. And here's the really shocking part, it's not just new cars. Even the used market, which was red-hot during the shortage years, is starting to cool dramatically. Prices are falling, yes, but they're not falling fast enough for buyers who remember how inflated things became. Many consumers are sitting back, waiting for an even bigger crash, and that wait-and-see mentality is freezing sales further. The dealership feels like it's in a losing game, slash prices too little, nobody comes, slash prices too much, and they cut into already razor-thin margins. This cycle has left dealerships in a state of crisis. The once booming lots that thrived during the pandemic shortage have turned into quiet stretches of asphalt with cars collecting dust. Salespeople who used to juggle multiple customers at once now find themselves waiting for hours without a single walk-in. And it's creating an industry-wide panic. If buyers won't come now, even with historic deals, what happens next? Some insiders warn this could be the start of a wave of dealership closures, reshaping the way Americans buy cars forever. And that brings us to the next big piece of this puzzle, the price crash nobody expected. Not long ago, the auto industry was dealing with the complete opposite problem. Prices were skyrocketing. If you wanted a truck or SUV during the shortage years, you were either paying thousands over MSRP or you weren't buying at all. Dealers had waiting lists. Customers were placing deposits months in advance just to secure a vehicle. It was chaos, and it seemed like the era of cheap cars was gone forever. But fast forward to now, and the situation has flipped on its head. Prices aren't just softening, they're collapsing in ways that have stunned even seasoned industry analysts. Discounts that used to be reserved for end-of-year clearance events are now being offered every single month. Some brands are slashing as much as $10,000 off the sticker price of trucks and SUVs, a shocking reversal after years of dealer markups. Even luxury models are taking hits, with incentives piling up higher than they have in a decade. In theory, this should be sparking a buying frenzy, but it isn't. Customers aren't flooding the lots, and that's what makes this crash so unusual. It's not just about numbers on a price tag, it's about trust, timing, and financial confidence. The reason this feels so unexpected is that both automakers and dealers thought the demand would remain bulletproof. The logic was simple, people held off during the shortages, so once inventory came back, they'd come rushing in. But that didn't happen. Instead, buyers felt burned by the insane markups of the past few years. They saw dealerships pocket huge profits during the pandemic, and now, even with discounts, many don't believe they're truly getting a fair deal. That lack of trust has turned into hesitation. Add on inflation eating into paychecks, plus interest rates that make car loans painfully expensive, and you have the perfect recipe for empty showrooms. The crash also blindsided dealers because of how quickly the tide turned. Just a year or two ago, used cars were worth nearly as much as new ones. Now, those same vehicles are losing thousands in value almost overnight. A car purchased at last year's inflated prices is worth far less today, making trade-ins a financial nightmare for owners. This has locked a lot of people out of the market entirely. They'd love to buy something new, but the math just doesn't work. Their current car is worth less than they owe, and dealers can't make the numbers add up no matter how big the discount looks on paper. All of this has created a strange standoff. Dealerships are desperate to sell, prices are falling harder than anyone predicted, but the buyers are still standing on the sidelines. It's a scenario that nobody in the industry saw coming, and it raises a dangerous question. If even historic discounts can't get people through the door, what happens to dealerships next? What's happening inside dealerships right now can only be described as a meltdown. Behind the glossy showroom lights and polished sales pitches, there's an air of panic that's hard to ignore. Dealers are cutting deeper than ever before, stacking rebates on top of trade-in bonuses, throwing in free maintenance packages, and even offering buy-now-pay-later style promotions just to move inventory. But here's the reality: none of it is working the way it used to. Customers aren't lining up, and the sales floor feels emptier by the day. For dealers who once thrived on volume, every quiet weekend feels like another nail in the coffin. The meltdown becomes clearer when you look at the numbers. Dealerships typically operate on thin margins, relying on steady turnover to keep cash flowing. But now, cars are sitting on lots for months, sometimes half a year or longer. Every day a vehicle sits unsold, dealers bleed money. Financing inventory, called floor plan costs, is eating them alive. They're essentially paying rent on cars that nobody wants, and with interest rates at some of the highest levels in decades, those costs add up quickly. The longer this drags on, the more dealers find themselves trapped in a financial vice. Even the once reliable tricks of the trade aren't delivering results. 0% financing used to be a silver bullet for boosting sales, but with today's market, even that feels out of reach for many buyers who are already stretched thin on mortgages, groceries, and insurance. Lease offers, which once brought in budget-conscious customers, aren't as attractive either, thanks to inflated residual values and higher monthly payments. Dealers are throwing everything at the wall, but nothing is sticking. And it's not just about money, it's about morale. Walk into a dealership today, and you'll see sales teams struggling to stay motivated. Many of these workers built their careers on the energy of a busy showroom, the constant negotiation, the thrill of closing a deal. Now, they're staring at empty lobbies and hearing phones that barely ring. Some are being pushed to work longer hours with fewer leads, while others are facing pay cuts as commissions shrink. The stress is palpable, and it's leading to high turnover across the industry. The meltdown also extends to relationships with automakers. Manufacturers, still pushing out new inventory, expect dealers to move units, but dealers are caught in the middle. They're begging for relief, asking automakers to slow production or provide better support, but the response has been lukewarm at best. Tensions are rising, and some dealers privately admit that if things don't improve soon, closures are inevitable. In fact, smaller, family-owned dealerships, once the backbone of local communities, are at the greatest risk of disappearing first. This is no longer just a sales slump. It's a full-blown identity crisis for the dealership model itself. The traditional ways of moving cars, slashing prices, running big weekend events, dangling low-interest offers, are no longer enough. And as this meltdown deepens, it's forcing a brutal question: are dealerships as we know them headed for extinction? Cars are now cheaper than they've been in years, but for most people, they're still untouchable. On the surface, the deals look incredible: thousands off the sticker price, bonus cash for trade-ins, and manufacturer incentives that sound too good to be true. Trucks that were once marked up over MSRP are now being listed below it, and SUVs that flew off the lots just a couple of years ago are practically begging for buyers. In theory, this should be a buyer's paradise. But in practice? It's not working out that way. The problem isn't the sticker price anymore, it's everything else that comes with owning a car. Even with discounts, financing costs remain painfully high. A vehicle that looks affordable at $35,000 quickly becomes a financial burden once interest rates are added in, turning what should be a manageable payment into a $700 a month headache. Insurance premiums are also climbing at record speed, especially for younger drivers and urban areas. Add in rising fuel prices and maintenance costs, and suddenly, those cheap cars aren't so cheap anymore. This is why many buyers feel paralyzed. They see the discounts, they hear the ads, but when they sit down to run the numbers, it just doesn't add up. The gap between what dealers are advertising and what buyers can realistically afford has never been wider. And for those who financed or leased vehicles during the height of the shortage, the situation is even worse. Many are trapped in loans where they owe more than their cars are worth, making it impossible to trade in without taking a huge financial hit. There's also a deep psychological factor at play. After years of inflated prices, markups, and aggressive sales tactics, customers have lost faith in the idea of a deal. Even if a car is legitimately discounted, many buyers assume the dealership is hiding something or that prices will fall even further if they just wait. That hesitation has created a standoff. Dealers keep cutting prices, but buyers keep holding out for a better bargain. It's a dangerous waiting game, and for now, dealerships are losing. And here's the irony: at the very moment cars are more available and more discounted than they've been in years, consumers feel more disconnected from the buying process than ever. The dream of driving home in a brand new vehicle has turned into a stressful financial puzzle, one that most people can't solve no matter how many incentives get thrown their way. Cars may be cheaper on paper, but for millions of Americans, they remain completely out of reach. On paper, this should be the ultimate buyer's market. Prices are dropping, lots are full, and dealers are more desperate than ever to move inventory. But in reality, this so-called buyer's market isn't working. The balance of power has shifted, yes, but not in a way that benefits ordinary shoppers. Instead of rushing to take advantage of record-breaking deals, consumers are pulling back, hesitant to make one of the biggest financial commitments of their lives. The root of the problem lies in confidence, or rather, the lack of it. Even with discounts, the overall cost of ownership has skyrocketed. People look at the total monthly payment, which now includes higher loan interest, rising insurance, and unpredictable fuel prices, and they feel uneasy. It's not that buyers don't want cars, it's that they don't trust their own financial stability enough to take on new debt. In a time where wages are struggling to keep pace with inflation, committing to a multi-year car loan feels risky, even reckless. There's also a sense of buyer's revenge brewing. Many shoppers remember the pandemic years when dealers piled on markups and refused to negotiate, leaving customers with no choice but to overpay or walk away. Now that the tables have turned, buyers are in no rush to reward those same dealerships with their hard-earned money. Instead, they're waiting, some for prices to fall even further, others for the auto industry to prove it's truly on the customer's side. That mistrust has created a stalemate, and it's preventing the so-called buyer's market from actually functioning. At the same time, technology is changing the game. More shoppers are exploring direct-to-consumer models, online car buying platforms, and even subscription services. These alternatives bypass the traditional dealership model, and once buyers realize they have options beyond the lot, the urgency to buy at a dealership disappears. This shift is weakening the leverage dealers used to enjoy, leaving them with fewer tools to draw in hesitant shoppers. The result is a bizarre paradox: discounts everywhere, but sales nowhere. It's a textbook buyer's market on the surface, but one that simply isn't translating into deals. And that's the real crisis. Because if even the most aggressive price cuts and incentives can't convince people to buy, then the problem isn't just about affordability, it's about the collapse of trust, timing, and confidence in the entire system. If you thought dealerships were desperate before, what's happening now looks more like outright begging. Dealers are stacking every incentive they can think of: massive rebates, trade-in bonuses, loyalty cash, and even 0% financing on select models. Some are throwing in free extended warranties, maintenance packages, or thousands of dollars in gift cards just to sweeten the deal. In the past, these kinds of offers would have created a buying frenzy. Today, they're barely moving the needle. The showroom floor remains quiet, and the lots stay full. The desperation is especially visible in advertising. Turn on the TV, scroll online, or drive past a dealership, and you'll see banners shouting, "Biggest sale ever," or "We'll beat any price." These promotions used to work like magnets, drawing in weekend crowds. Now, they sound more like pleas than promises. The problem is, buyers aren't responding because the real obstacle isn't the discount, it's the cost of living crisis that discounts can't fix. A $5,000 rebate doesn't make a $50,000 truck affordable when the loan interest rate turns it into a $70,000 purchase over time. This growing disconnect is leaving dealers frustrated and financially strained. They're burning through their savings just to keep the lights on, covering payroll, and paying interest on unsold inventory. For many smaller, family-owned dealerships, the numbers simply don't add up anymore. Some are quietly considering consolidation, merging with bigger groups, or shutting down entirely.